Okay, beautiful. So we hear that there's a little bit of a topic or a theme popping up here, and around specialness, and we've been joined very intently for the last couple of weeks writing about specialness for Christian's book. So it just felt really natural to just be here and share and extend from a very authentic place of what we've been through. And it's really beautiful not to be talking about it conceptually so much, but really experientially, like being able to witness to the miracle and how powerful this process can be. But before we really get into it, we wanted to start off with a song, and then we'll go from there. We absolutely don't know what we're doing, so...
I'd like to share with you one of my pet peeves right now. Joan, would you go get the pee from the cage? Don't worry, it's on a leash. Seriously, a pet peeve. This is my thing. Music has the power to really touch people, reach people, uplift people, instruct, educate, heal. And popular music, especially love songs, do not do it. The songs that you listen to on the radio, most of them are really about codependency and fear and holding on. And, once you have found her, never let her go. Let's be serious about that. If you really use that as your philosophy, you'd end up having a lot of restraining orders on you. What we consider romance is not very healthy. You made me love you. I didn't want to do it. I can't smile without you. Get a life. So this is my little antidote. Sometimes I call it number 15 codependency block. Because if you sing this little ditty, your mind will be protected, shielded from the negative effects of the lyrics of today's codependent songs, and then you can enjoy them and not be freaked out by them. So please join me in learning this, and we can sing it together and then go through some of our favorite oldies. Just a codependent love song, one that's filled with pain and misery. Just a codependent love song, glorifying insecurity. Okay, let's sing that together. Just a codependent love song, one that's filled with pain and misery. Just a codependent love song, glorifying insecurity. I know I'll never love this way again, so I keep holding on till the good is gone.
Till the good is gone.
Just a codependent love song, one that's filled with pain and misery. Just a codependent love song, glorifying insecurity. The 1950s was a time where the United States government was experimenting with subliminal technology, just seeing how it might affect the masses of people like you and me. They put some of these messages, these subliminal messages, underneath some of the 50 songs that we were listening to. And if you listen to your old 45s really carefully, you might be able to find some of these hidden subliminal messages. Listen very closely right now and try to find the hidden message of blame and being a victim underneath the following. Yeah. You don't remember me, but I remember you. 'Twas not so long ago, you broke my heart in two. Tears on my pillow, pain in my heart, caused by you. Did anybody find it? lot of psychics in Detroit. Just a codependent love song, one that's filled with pain and misery. Just a codependent love song, glorifying insecurity. Well, we can go on all night, as you know, but we're going to close this melody with a song that Barry Manilow won his 12th Codependent Grammy of the Year. I can't smile without you. I can't smile without you. I can't laugh and I can't sing. I'm finding it hard to do anything. You see, I feel sad when you're sad. Feel glad when you're glad. If you knew what I'm going through, I just can't smile. Just a codependent love song, one that's filled with pain and misery. Just a codependent love song, glorifying insecurity.
Pretty much says it all.
That's great.
Yeah, just to open up tonight, I just, of course, always in my mind, I'm always inviting the Spirit, the truth in our minds to join, and so I just like to have us all just close our eyes for a moment and really invite that awareness to be opened up in our mind, that we can join together tonight on a topic that is really at the root and the base of fear. And so yeah, this is sacred ground. It's a time for us to just explore and to release and to share and extend the miracles as well as the parables that help us get through this phase, and it is a phase, thank God. It doesn't last forever, but yeah, just really express my gratitude that we're able to share this with you tonight. Yeah, that's great to start off that way, and then for us it's been a real gift with the humor. Without the humor, I don't think we would have lasted very long. So, yeah. So we don't have anything planned. We're just here to allow the Spirit to just convey whatever is to be expressed and extended. I always feel like it's for me. I never ever feel like I'm teaching anybody anything anymore. I feel like it's a gift to myself to be able to share some of the things that I've learned, because it helps me experience it on a deeper level. And all day long today, ever since we knew we were going to be sharing, I could hear all of these teachings going on in my head. Like it was like just pouring through my mind, and I sat down in meditation and I said, is there anything that you would have me share? And the voice came through and says, no, I've got it. So I'm just here. I feel very joyful to be here. It feels really, really natural, really good. I don't think I could have been here until today talking about this at the level that we're talking at it now, because there's been such a transformation and such a healing that's occurred. It's been about 2 years of just really looking deeply into our minds and allowing the Holy Spirit to set this up so that we could go deeper into a vertical relationship with the Spirit. That was the whole purpose for us coming together. Was there was a devotion in both of our hearts that met and came in strange packages for both of us, because we would never have chosen each other to do this with. And yeah, we just really, it was a dedication of that one goal. I think that's really kind of what is coming through in the book too, is how radically different this is from any relationships of the world. And of course we do it with each other in community, and then there's an intensifying mechanism that happens when two people come together to mirror that strongly. the patterns that we so desperately want to let go of, but we don't even know that they're there. And that's the great gift of it, because I know for me, I really thought I was more advanced than Christian. I really thought I had more mind training than him. I really thought I was further ahead, and I actually thought that I knew how to have a relationship with a man much more than he knew how to have a relationship with a woman. So I was going to teach him a few things so we could be happy. And so we're just going to talk about all that stuff tonight. And I feel like that's what brings us all together, is that intention and that devotion to actually awaken from the dream. If you're in this house and you don't have that desire, then you need to move somewhere else, because really the intensity that starts to happen in the mind when you decide for that one goal of it's like hitting the expiration date with the world and saying, I'm going to go all the way with this. That was my attraction to this community. That was my attraction to David. Was I had studied the Course for many, many years, but I didn't feel a consistency of joy. And I've kind of hit that ceiling. So started traveling inward into the mind more and more. And so, it's a very dedicated process. And lots of times you'll feel like you're not getting anywhere at all, especially when you're spinning in some sort of pattern that doesn't, that's very strongly held. It's like that's when you feel like, really, am I really doing anything at all here? But of course you are. It's like every time you revisit that, the root you get closer and closer to the root. The ego would like you to think you're not getting very far. But if you hang in there with it, forgiveness works. And that's the gift of being in community, is acceleration of the relationships, just accelerating, because the mirroring is so strong. And that's why we're each other's savior, because whatever I see in you is what I believe. And what am I choosing to see? So anyway, I'll just kick it off with that.
I actually went into expression dance. It was beautiful because Carrie started off with just really going deep into exactly what expression was and how we use it at the monastery. It was quite comprehensive. And it seems like that was the thing that drove this relationship in terms of the healing from the very beginning. Really, and we were talking about this. The very first real expression we had was a key to these later obstacles that would come up, which was the first expression we had was there was an upset because I wasn't prepared for her when we had morning meditation, which we started off with.
His room was a mess.
Yeah, my room was a mess.
And he wasn't out of bed.
Yeah, and I wasn't out of bed. So we started off with these, with what appeared to be kind of a surface level expression. And it actually eventually led to an expression about a month later, which was a belief that she was correcting me. So that was the initial thing that came up for me in this first expression, that I was being corrected and I couldn't do things right. And a month later, when we had kind of the first explosive expression, what came to light was, and I had no idea that this existed, and she brought it up for me, which was that I felt abandoned by my mother when I was 7, and I pushed her away, and I always felt corrected by her. And that would have never been exposed to that level that quickly without Suzanne kind of reflecting back that sense of abandonment for me. Or actually it was kicked off by kind of a feeling that I couldn't do things right, that I was being corrected. And that was a common theme, which brought up a wall for me, which actually was the key component of the relationship, this wall that I had of pushing her away, which is what I did to my mother. And it was actually the key component for every relationship that I'd ever had to that point, which was completely out of my awareness. But I began pushing women away from the minute that there was some kind of attraction. It was just so subtle and was on so many different levels that I didn't know. So I basically rejected people or women from the minute I met them. I started rejecting them, even though there was so just the depth of that, that kind of kicked things off in terms of the level that
and
we were
what's
looking
so
at.
cool about it is that the first expression about his room and about him not being ready or prepared for when I came, there was so much underneath just that. And if you leave it at the surface, and that's why the expression is so imperative, is because if you just shrug it off like it's no big deal, then you don't get underneath it. And what started to happen is we started to get underneath it, and we started to get underneath it relatively quick. It's not the surface, but the surface has to be expressed, the annoyance, all of that, so that you can start to see underneath it. I saw that as a symbol, or that what it meant was that he didn't care about me. He didn't care about me enough to be up and ready for me. And so we would start to get underneath that. Now, the patterning is what is so great about these assignments, because the patterns are going to be undone, and it's like we're brought together perfectly for that purpose, to start to see those things. And I had so many ideas about what love was. And I had so many ideas. I mean, if you loved somebody, you would be up, your room would be clean, and you'd be ready. Yeah. See? So judgment, you're not doing it right. So automatically he's hitting his mother concept, which he doesn't even know is there, right? But this is where we just start spiraling in and in and in on these things. Now the key thing, really truly, in working through relationships is the dedication for this relationship. If it's about him, which it was for a long, long time, I really thought I was trying to get this horizontal kind of harmony, like if you just share deeply with me, then we'll be happy, and all of these old ideas. It's almost like I was going to take the old way of doing relationship, which I had pretty great relationships in my life, and I was just going to spiritualize this one, and I would have been lost in specialness, wrapped up in a spiritual kind of facade. And he wouldn't go there. So he would never do anything I wanted him to do. I mean, across the board. The only thing that kept us together is because it was an assignment. It was truly a given assignment for the healing of these deep patterns. Because we have to go through those dark corners in our mind and release them so that the mind can expand into this love that has nothing to do with the person. And that's what all of this is for. It's not about having another relationship with somebody or having a nice life experiences or feeling a little bit better. This is about waking up from the dream of pain and suffering. I mean, this is good stuff. And if you keep wanting to relate horizontally, which is what I so wanted to do, I just thought, if Christian would just do this and this and this, he has all the blocks. I don't have the blocks. He has the blocks, you see. And it lasted for a long time. But meanwhile, it's wearing his concept with your mother down in your mind. So.
Yeah, and actually, when we first started writing this chapter, we were over in Masterpiece, and we found this course teacher. I don't remember his name, but he actually started off by saying that he had counseled lots of couples, and he always started off with a question, which was, "What's the purpose of this relationship?" And the answer was always, well, we're putting kids through school, or financially it's good, or and he went through all of these worldly answers, and he said, really, people don't even know why they're together, which is true. He said he was never answered by the answer of it's for healing, and that's such a massive shift. And really, when we have these relationships here, it's one purpose driving it, and that is the healing of these hidden concepts. And the way that we do these worldly relationships, they are literally set up for failure, to keep this egoic thought process.
The search, right?
The search, exactly.
For
and
something.
What do you call it? A spiritual pareja. What do you call it?
Speaking in Spanish.
Yeah, like a soulmate.
A soulmate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're-
There you go.
we're always-
See, I can't even remember it anymore.
We're always out there looking for a soulmate, somebody that's going to complete me because we have a sense of lack.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that sense of lack. And that's why we set up these relationships. Unbeknownst to us, it's coming from this deep place of lack. So that's kind of where we started looking at this, just with that as kind of the cornerstone. Okay, this relationship, when we got together, it was, first of all, it was scary as hell to me when she approached me and said there can be no more private thoughts between us. We were friends.
And I was not asking him for a relationship. That's what he interpreted. And okay, let's go.
Yeah, that was always the thing that kind of brought us together because there was a connection from the beginning. But for me, it was never, a romantic relationship. And actually, when I got here, I was taking a walk with Jenny, and she started telling me how relationships are used here, and it scared the hell out of me because there was no such thing as romance. It was romance was an ego goal basically, and so I was pretty sure that romance that's a good thing, Well, it's. So anyway, she took me through how the relationships are used with purpose coming underneath, which is the healing of the mind. And so I really didn't want to have anything to do with that. I was hoping that I could do all my healing without having another relationship. And now I see, looking back at this specific block, this wall, this feeling of being abandoned and feeling of deep, deep, deep correction, what I called the correction mechanism, had to come in this manner, and in terms of a very fast way of looking at it. Even though it was over 2 years, it was very rapid in the way it kind of came to the surface, and then, for both of us kind of pounding up against that wall. It was a very rapid way for me to look at that specific block, which was so massive in my mind.
Yeah, and the I know mind, it's so important to, as quickly as possible, let go of thinking that you know. It took me a long time to let go of thinking that I knew of how this relationship was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was so solid in my mind because I had seemingly good relationships. My journey really has been letting go of what the world would see as good concepts. It's easy to let go of anger and people that that trigger you and all that kind of stuff. But I had the idea in my mind that I had good relationships, and so that was a major block because I really thought I knew how to do it. And so the fact that the Spirit set me up with somebody that would not go down that road, and so that block, I would hit it and hit it and hit it and blame. And so when it started to melt away after lots of exposing and lots of frustration and we would go away from each other for a while and come back.
And we're actually split up a couple of different times by Jason and David. And
that's what's so great about community with relationship too, is you do have this support. When you can't see something and you're stuck, it's like somebody that you trust and somebody that's linked in can come in and just kind of help you loosen it up and take a look from a different perspective. It might take a little bit of time away from each other or whatever. So yeah, it's just been an amazing experience, really. And over the last, since you started writing your book, and then you asked me to write this chapter with you, it's almost like it's been so fun to just start to write about it and start to share it in such a clear way in the mind, because I'm literally just really in such full appreciation of the process that the Spirit gave. And that's the thing, it's like everybody here, it's like we're all giving exactly what we need right now. And the fact that we think we need something different is what is hurting us, actually. There's a line in the Course that said, everything you think you need will hurt you. And there's a reason for that. It's like we have such a strong I know mind of what will make me happy. And you know what? From my experience, I had no idea. Really, no idea what made me happy. And in fact, the things that I thought made me happy got in the way of this spiritual awakening to this relationship. And And that's the thing. If we go into relationship with somebody, yes, there's all sorts of ideas of romance or this, whatever, the spark, however the spark comes in for you, but that will be retranslated. And the Spirit will use that attraction. It's, and then it's just this full allowance to just let your mind just be absorbed into the process. But I know that I think from what we've experienced, just to be able to share a few things around what would be helpful, and one of those things is really as quickly as possible realizing that you don't know what you need. You do not know your own best interests. I love that part in the Course. And I guess that took me so long to finally melt away, because when you think you know something, I mean, really, it's like, it's so, it's such a sabotage of the ego. It's like, oh no, this can't be. It has to be him, because I'm so open. It's his block. And in fact, writing this chapter, The Wall, there's a section called The Wall, when I would meet Christian's wall, and how I resisted that and tried to change him, which reinforced the pattern which he needed to let go of course, which was that he's doing something wrong or that he can hurt somebody. So it's just this beautiful dance that would happen. And when we're dedicated, when we really say, Holy Spirit, okay, I want to go all the way with this, everything will be set up so that those blocks can be released. And that's what a relationship is for. Now, it doesn't mean, like now, it's like we feel really like we're past the intensive learning and releasing stage with each other. And now, if we're together at all, it will be because we're in purpose. And it doesn't mean that doesn't mean you don't go for a walk because it's joyful to just share it. It's not like, oh, you're going to be teaching or you're going to be doing that. It'll be whatever it is. But there will be purpose underneath it. And right now it feels very joyful and very light. And about, I don't know when it was, maybe 8 or 9 months ago. I can't really, timelines, I can't figure them out anymore. But a while ago, I was shown in a vision what my mind felt like without specialness in it. It was in the night, and it was so beautiful. It was just so light and pure, and it was like almost like the Spirit would give me little signs along the way of just keep coming, and this wanting something from somebody else. It's like we do relationships in this community to undo the need for interpersonal relationships. Yeah. Now, the key word there is need. The need for a relationship. Now, that doesn't mean you don't start off feeling all those feelings. Of course you do, but because that's what's up. That's what needs to come up and be released. So it's just a fantastic setup and an opportunity. But if you're thinking that it's about, or there's a wanting and a longing which needs to be washed, that's what needs to be washed, for a horizontal harmony is what the word that kept coming into me. You still want horizontal harmony with somebody. It's this direction. And so we're taking our mind off this deeply held pattern of this horizontal relating, wanting you to feel good, wanting to make sure you're okay, caring about you. All the things we value. Caring, can you imagine caring is a concept that has to be questioned? That seems like a good thing, Missing, yeah, that was a big one for me. Christian would go away, would go to Texas or whatever, it's like out of sight, out of mind. That was just not okay, That meant he just really didn't care. And now I experience that. Now. It's like, oh my God, I don't think about Christian, haven't thought about Christian when he's not in the room anymore. And when he's in the room, it's no different than being with Jackie. This deep love starts to fill the heart and the mind, and it's like you love everybody. It's not personal. It seems like such a sacrifice when you're talking about it. From the the cloudy perception, but you start to come into it and you start to feel it, and it's like, oh my God, this is what it's all for. It has no object. It's not about a person anymore, but we use each other to start to have that emerge. It's that inner radiance that the Course talks about. Of course, we're going to be given every opportunity once we've made up our mind that that's what we want, but it has to be so focused that that's what it's for. Because when that other person is just doing everything that you don't want them to do, and they shouldn't be doing, of course, if they were wanting to connect, then you're sunk.
Yeah. Yeah, if there are any questions as we're going, just let us know.
Yeah, just want to have a real open dialogue tonight and ask any questions about anything, because we're just open to share. And
yeah, I would say that one important point to make is that, like we did, there. First of all, there has to be a spark. And I remember when JP and Carrie, yeah, and the thing that came out of that is, I remember after y'all split up, David said something about a spark has to drive the relationship, and that just kind of caught my ear. Okay, spark. And I went and asked JP, and later I had David talk about it. And David said spark is spirit. So it's the thing that will pull you through the times when you're, as you well know, that when you're hitting up against a wall with each other, it's the thing that can, pulls you through those dark times.
it's like the glue.
Yeah, the glue.
The spiritual glue.
There has to be some kind of something that brings cohesion back to the relationship, because there's going to be lots of times, when we pound up against each other. So Suzanne and I always had a great time together. That was, we loved to go camping, and do what, go out and eat, have dinner periodically, and those were always used initially. We never went camping once and didn't have a huge expression. That's the way Spirit used it. We would go out, we'd have great time, and then expression would come, and it was always, you're sitting there wobbly, and you always feel a lot
the
better.
The fantasy of the trip was always better than the reality.
It was always in purpose. It was always, no matter what it looked like on the surface, it was like the next day there was always a huge expression, sometimes on the way out.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for a while there, it never failed. It was like every time we would go somewhere, it was like something came up, and we would just go through it, the best we could. And the whole time, this dynamic is working against us, but for us, which is the wall, and me thinking he needs to do it differently. Those were the key things for us.
And then maximization. The word maximization started coming in. Okay, it's maximized, and we wouldn't just, it's maximize and go the other way. We would sit there and join around, is it maximized, and really look at it very, very deeply. And the thing about maximization is that you can, if there's still huge upsets driving the belief that it's maximized, and this is one thing that I saw very, very clearly, that it's not maximized.
You wish it were.
Yeah, like when is this going to end? And the thing was, I realized, okay, I have these deep things that have to be healed. I can say it's maximized with Suzanne, and then I'm going to eventually another relationship is going to come along that I'll have to look at these same things again. Do I want to? Now it's just a time delay. I have a relationship that will undo these things. If I say no, then I'm just saying basically no to the healing at this point. I'm going to stop. And so that always just kept me, pushing through those times. Okay, it's not maximum. I had to get, it's like this is where the rubber hits the road, and we have to get very serious with what we want to accomplish. And there was I knew that when Suzanne said there can be no private thoughts, I knew that this was a huge, huge speed up for me. And I knew that I was going to have to up my mind training. It would up my mind training, and I would have to take steps up immediately. And that's basically what happened. But when the maximization talk came, it was just another expression. And I remember one time, actually, we left Camas, and Suzanne had stopped smoking. And we left Camas, and about a third of the way there, it was 10 miles out of town. He was like, I think it's maximized. And it was a huge upset for her again. It's just like, it's
I was like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. I think so. And so we talked about it all the way home, back to the monastery, and we actually took the back way, and she made me go 20 miles out of the way to buy her a pack of cigarettes.
And you
Because she's
thought
going
that
to start,
was really great.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm going to start smoking again. So,
Yeah, it was, all the time. What I had the sense of, or what I thought, and what I really thought I knew, is that the reason that the maximization talk would come was because he wasn't willing to join. That was my belief. And so it was like I had to keep having this pounded at me all the time. And I knew that the relationship was still given. And in fact, one of the most potent healing times was when the first time really that the maximization talk came, and it was like we were 9 months into our relationship, and he said he was maximized, and I didn't feel it. And I was going to facilitate a month-long silent retreat at the monastery at the time, but we went with it. And
that was here?
That was here, yeah. And I was going out for a month at the monastery, and I was completely devastated because I didn't feel it. And so all the things that I had been trying to cover over my whole life came straight up into my awareness. I was running all the time from having a man ever leave me, and in fact, one never had, ever. That was pretty good. I grew up with my grandmother saying, "You make sure that the man loves you more than you love him, because he'll leave you."
Sage advice.
And I mean, just these weird ideas. And so when here I'm going to be faced. I used to listen to my mother. My father left my mother when I was 17 years old, and I moved in with her for a while. And she would, we were waiting for some bedroom furniture, so I'd sleep with her, and I'd hear her gently cry herself to sleep because she didn't want to make my dad look like, in a bad light. So she would hide it from me. So I would listen to her, and I thought she was an angel. Absolutely. How, after 27 years, can somebody who's an angel, beautiful, has been a devoted wife, never heard an argument in the house ever, all of a sudden, poof, the shock. So it was like, I knew I would never, ever be that. And so my whole life, I didn't know this, of course, just like you didn't know the whole correction mechanism. These are the things that are in our subconscious that are running our life, and we don't know it until we come together in this dedicated purpose to start to undo it and get those blocks out of there so we can experience true happiness. So I was dead set on never letting that one surface and never being the one with the broken heart. I'll break the heart, I will not be broken. And so here I was, maximized. He wanted to be maximized, I didn't feel it. I went up to the monastery, and I had a shrine with Jesus on it with candles, and I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to face this horror in my mind, And every day and every night, I mean, I was wrecked because all this stuff was coming up. All this past fear was coming to the surface. Not being good enough, being rejected, being out of control, just it was huge, huge, huge healing for me. But I was so dedicated to the truth. I knew it could not be the truth. I knew that love that we're learning from the Course in Miracles from Jesus does not feel pain. So I knew that there was all sorts of weird stuff in here that could not possibly be the truth. And, I had taken many, many steps, as we all have, to be here and go through this cleansing. And so here I was, month-long silent retreat. Laverne was stewarding for me at the time. It was so beautiful. It just came right up underneath me. But I had the time and the space and the quiet to be in such a deep prayer. And I'll tell you, it was a deep prayer. And I would just go in after it every night with the Spirit, show me what this is. Linear time, concepts about being a woman, having a personal history. I mean, it was just amazing what was under that. Had absolutely nothing to do with him, but he was the setup for my mind to be able to move through this stuff. About the third week, I started feeling this release, and I started coming into the miracle, and I started having these mystical experiences. And I remember one time, David, I was in this intense love just pouring through me. And I thought, I want to call David and share this. But I couldn't pick up the phone. And then in that second, David called. And I picked up the phone and I just started bawling. I said, what were we thinking? You know, really, it was so small. What were we thinking? And we just joined in this beautiful kind of revelry of true love, And so that was the first, really, I learned more in that month, experientially. I mean, all the 9 months had led up to that. You know, all the sharing, all the exposing led up to this ability to face this intense fear. And so at the end of the silent retreat, I came here and I felt completely elevated. I mean, my mind was high, and I was leaving in a month for China. And then you came to my room.
No, that was actually, you went to California and then to China, and then I was actually working with Helena on worksheets, like looking at this relationship, actually with my mother, and it was just kind of over and over. And then I went and did 2-week hermitage while you were in China, and that continued, where it was just hour after hour of worksheets all day long. And it actually, I thought it was going to be about something else. I had a list of worksheets that I wanted to do, and it ended up being about my family dynamics, my mother specifically. And I remember walking back in, the next time I saw Suzanne was at the monastery, and we walked in. I walked up to her room, and I looked at her. It was like looking at a completely new person, completely fresh. And I realized in that moment that it was actually my healing that had been taking place. That it's like when David talks about a washing that goes on. That's exactly what happens when these concepts fall. You begin seeing people completely differently, because we're only ever seeing our concepts. We're never seeing a person. We're only seeing our beliefs that were generated. A lot of these beliefs were generated from the time where we were a child.
And we don't know that they're there.
No idea. But actually this first maximization, we actually pulled Lisa in. We were out here in this trailer. We pulled Lisa in, and Lisa sat there and worked with us for quite a while. And at one point she looked at me and she goes, you can't be a good boy. And I flashed back to a time when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, and I would take off and go to a creek. My mother, it was completely forbidden. She wouldn't allow me to do it. And I would take off and go to this creek with my friends, and I would come home. She'd say, what were you doing? Oh, I was over at Chris's or whoever. And I would never tell her that I went. But she would call me a good boy. And I remember making the decision that I could not be a good boy because I lied to my mother. I wouldn't tell her the truth, and I was going to. So I was not only not a good boy, I was a bad boy. And when Lisa looked at me and said,
Those words.
I flashed back and I saw myself make that decision, and that was staining of the concepts or the beliefs of a 40-year-old man. Just so insane. It's insipid, really, the way the ego works. And that was, now we're pounding up against each other, apparently, because of a decision a freaking 4-year-old made.
That's what's so cool, is they all get unearthed.
It's that insane. That's how insane it is.
Yeah, and that's what's been running the show. So this purification, miracles, we're entitled to miracles. And a miracle mind is pure, and it's extending, and it's blessing everything. But the purification has to occur. And that's what we've been about. We've just been about this purification. That's what we're about here. That's what all of coming together is for. And it can get very, very intense to the point where you think this can't possibly be the spirit because it's too fearful. And I remember when I first left my life, and people would say, even Course in Miracles, people that I had relationships with in the past before David, they would say, this can't possibly be the Holy Spirit because you're in too much fear and confusion. The Holy Spirit doesn't work that way. It's like, yeah, that's true. The Holy Spirit doesn't work that way. But the ego, when you make that decision, everything will come up and you'll feel such a deep threat in the mind. You don't even understand what it is at first. Like, I just felt so threatened. I knew I was going, but it was like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, and I had no idea. And that we were talking about that other day, how you don't get all the comfort and all the security first. Yeah. You have to take the jump first, which a lot of us in this room have done. It's like, then the stairway will appear. Yeah. But you don't know it's going to appear.
The mighty companions show up after the leap, not before.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a wild ride, and using relationships in community, in intimate relationships is just a speed up. And, like I've been working a lot with Ricky, and she's in Spain, and I worked a lot with Jason when I first came in, and I was in love with Jason. I just loved him. I just, I saw the Christ light in him, really. And that was my first kind of step of, because he was so vertical. He was so vertical, and he just held it. And I started to see the games I would play and all these things to try to hook him. I had no idea what love was. In fact, I'm just starting to see that I've never, ever known what love is. And if from the world standards, I had a very loving life. And it is a covering over this incredible experience of ease and rest and all the things that the Course in Miracles promises. And I can say now that I'm having those experiences and they're consistent. Once in a while, something will come up fine. I'm great with that. It's like, okay, just like Byron Katie says all the time, okay, I look forward to just to be able to just go further and further into the light, because that's all that's happening. The ego world has a ceiling on it. The ego world, you have happiness, sadness, fear, you have all these different experiences and emotions. There's a ceiling, right? You hit it. How many times can you fall in love and hit that same ceiling, or be excited because you got a promotion or whatever? And what I've experienced is that I hit that ceiling, opened my mind and heart, kept hearing you need to go deeper. David came in. Okay, there's my call being answered. And now I just have to continually trust that process and continually go deeper and deeper. And what's happening is the experience keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's no ceiling on it. And in fact, what's happening here is that the mind is just being prepared for the final step. And so we can't even approach that place until all of this pushed out of awareness stuff is brought to the surface. So it's good news when you're spinning. It's good news when you're up against the wall with something. It's an opportunity to heal. And then you start to fall into this awareness, which we have, of it's just my mind. Yeah. It's just my mind.
Yeah, that's the point that each one of us is driven to over and over. Just by being here, we have to, that's what these expressions are actually for, being driven to the point where we're realizing that we can only ever see our own mind. And that's why, it's not necessary to go out and get a special relationship to undo the belief in specialness, because we, like I said at lunch, we all have a relationship with each other. So we have people that are going to mirror to us the things that we believe, and then people that come up are going to come up underneath us. And actually, they're both absolutely necessary. The ones who mirror, who, we have to sit there at the table and look across the table at them sometimes and go, I freaking hate you, or whatever it is. You really piss me off right now. Those are the, we have to get in touch with that emotional level before we can start going deeper, and just being able to sit there and say these things. And, we're using each other to literally go deep into the mind. And Suzanne and I, actually, when we got together, I spent many hours voicing in expression sessions before we got together. And then after we got together, my expression tended to be with her. But it doesn't really matter what it looks like, because, like she said earlier, everybody's getting exactly what they need right now in order to heal whatever's up in the moment.
Yeah, will you talk maybe just a little bit about, I love that, we're only ever seeing our own concepts overlaid on somebody else, and then we're blaming them for our own unhappiness. Can you talk about that a little bit, just what that...
Yeah, I just found a course quote in the last few months, and it is, teaching is but a call to witnesses to attest to what you believe. So we're always teaching. We're always teaching. And I remember I found, I had been at the monastery for 5 months, and I went back to my old job. And I got a hold of this quote from a teacher. I don't remember who it was, even if it was a course teacher. I don't remember. Show me the 5 people closest to you, and I'll show you who you are. And I remember I was at work one morning. I was looking around, going, "Okay, I got to get serious with myself." The 5 people I was closest to were those 5 guys that I was working with, and in terms of their minds were a mess. So we can sit here and project, "Oh, these guys are a mess." Well, who's the mess? Like David says, when you point the finger, you have 3 pointed back at you. So really, this being here is an opportunity to get completely responsible for what's going on in our mind, because these thoughts are being driven by beliefs, and we just jump on a thought. We do it all the time, and we do it 24 hours a day. We jump on thought, we believe it's true, and we follow it. It's like we jump on the train and we just follow it. And by being in these expressions, actually, David has what's called the levels of mind. So you have, it's really beautiful. It's there's a desire. I think it's desire, belief, thought, emotion, and the gross physical realm. So there was a desire for separation, which led to a belief that the separation was true, which starts driving thoughts like, I'm not worthy. And then that leads to emotions like anger, hatred, and then that literally creates the gross perceptual realm, everything that we see. And when we're in that expression, we're actually initially trying to get in touch with that emotion, and the person that's leading the expression will start dragging us down to look at what's driving that emotion, the thoughts, and then underneath that is the belief. And as soon as we start getting in touch with those two, it starts pulling the plug on all of it, on all of it. So that's why this is, because most people are just hanging out right here. The whole world is hanging out, gross perceptual realm. Gross, never even really getting in touch with the emotions, not even the emotions. So that's where we have to start, and that's why when we get here, we start by just voicing everything that's in the mind, and then allowing Carrie to start pulling you down and looking at these two so that you can pull the plug on all of it. I've heard David say, I've only heard him say this one time, but it was just like beautiful, is we, like, everybody is kind of dealing with, if you're in a lake and there's a pump at the bottom of the lake and it's making these bubbles, the world is dealing with the bubbles, and we're down at the pump,
Getting to the pump.
unplugging it. And that's what these expressions start allowing us to get down underneath that desire and pull the plug on the whole thing. And it appears as if we have to do it over and over and over because we believe in linear time. And actually just being here is there's a huge desire to pull the plug on the whole thing.
Yeah, those concepts, like the surface, is what I call like that situational thinking. You think there's actually a situation happening, when really it's just a movement of mind, and it's an attraction to the separation. So what was very, very helpful to me, and some of you have heard this before, is that to come from a place of I am awake, or the vertical, and see where from that place I want to sleep, where I want to judge. Instead of I'm this trying to get to this, no, I'm this and I'm tempted to stay asleep, so I go horizontal. So it really helped me come from a more powerful place, because I used to feel like I was a dream figure trying to wake up from the dream, when in all actuality this is the truth of who we are. And this is the temptation to sleep.
Yeah.
So we just start dealing with these temptations one by one by one. And how do you know that you're caught in it? By how you feel. And Jesus talks about that over and over. It's like, okay, if you're not feeling joyful, guess what? There is a covering and a temptation to go horizontal. And so if you keep thinking that you're all these thoughts trying to get here, it'll never ever happen. And the ego loves this setup. Like, okay, you're going to try and you're going to do your lessons and you're going to all this stuff, and then eventually you'll wake up. When really it's you got to start claiming it. Heaven is a decision I must make. I make it now. Okay, I'm going to come from this strong point, and then I'm going to start seeing what attracts me to fall off the beam of light. And that's why we always use this vertical expression. Where, we always say, are you how are you? Are you vertical? Because that is your natural state, is to be vertical and be strong. But the rest of it is just showing us what needs to be forgiven. And the cool thing is it doesn't have anything to do with who you are. Your hateful thoughts that are going to come up, your contractions, your emotions, none of those are you.
No.
None of them.
Guilt serves no purpose.
Yeah, guilt serves no purpose. And Christian was so guilt-ridden. I mean, I've never met anybody who was more guilty than Christian. And I never really thought I ever had any guilt, I didn't relate to it. But fear and guilt are the same. So, I started to see how afraid I was. I was so afraid of not being loved, being rejected. And of course it goes way beyond people down into the separation, thinking that I actually felt abandoned by God. So it's a very deep, beautiful process, but as long as you're on the surface, and of course, like Christian just said, you start there, but you just keep diving and diving and diving, and it will seem like forever. And I know it did for me. I tell people all the time, and I don't. For a while there, I just thought I'm not going to say this anymore because I think it just scares people. But for me, and everything is highly individualized. But for me, I was really in the fetal position for a couple of years. Because when I left it all, and I left it fast, and I was a mess. I was just a total and complete mess, and had to face all that darkness that I didn't even know existed because I had such a nice life, So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, Andy had a really beautiful expression today, and he was out. He saw guilty Andy come up. These thoughts, and this is the whole practice right here. Going, no, I don't want those thoughts. Seeing that it is just a thought. And I've been reading a lot of Ramana Maharshi, especially lately, and he actually has a quote where he says, "Thoughts are the enemy." That's pretty damn clear. Thoughts are the enemy. And I've really been putting that into practice and just watching, like getting clear every morning, watching all of my thoughts that come across, and seeing that when I jump on one of those trains and I follow these thoughts out, that's actually when the guilt jumps on top of that thought. And so, the thoughts are going to come. We don't have to believe them. They're going to come until they don't. But they're going to come, and they're going to come, and they're going to come. We don't have to believe them. And all of this is just getting clear that really we're not guilty. And when we hit that point, we're not guilty, then we can in every instant, we can make the choice for something else. We don't even have to know what that something else is. Just, no, I'm not guilty. I don't have to follow that thought out. And just getting real clear over the last few months about that, and really seeing more clearly than ever that I'm not guilty. And that when I choose to be guilty, then I am guilty. And then I get everything that comes with that. And it's just a simple decision of following a thought out. And that's why we have to get so clear about what we're thinking. And that's why we have these tasks. Because you're in the perfect task right now, I guarantee you that, for looking at the thoughts that have been perpetuated our whole life by just walking through kind of these worldly oriented goals, whether it's raising, having a family or having a job in the world. Or the ego has a million different purposes, and it's all to keep us spun out into the world, no matter what we're doing, or to spun out in these guilty thoughts. And so these expressions are just priceless for helping us get in contact with what we're thinking and the guilt that's associated with it, because we are not those thoughts. Mm-hmm. We're not those thoughts. And by voicing them, our brothers are going to reflect our innocence back to us. And that's so huge, because you won't find that anywhere in the world. You're not going to find it with your biological family. You're not going to find it with your friends. You're not going to find it with your coworkers.
Mm-hmm. I love that, what you just said about the ego has, millions of different purposes. And really, the simple and the fast track is to dedicate the mind to one purpose. It just, across the board, it'll wipe out so much complexity. Because you know that whatever you're faced with in that moment isn't about the situation. It's about how is this being used to heal my mind. Every single situation can be used to heal your mind at this point, now that you've chosen to be here for this deep mind training. And then it simplifies. It's like, it doesn't feel good,
No.
but it simplifies it, because there's not something to work out in the world anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and just like, when we're in there expressing, or when we're walking through a day and it doesn't feel good, like Suzanne said earlier, this is so critical to come to the realization that is actually a good thing. That's actually a good thing. That means that healing is taking place. What did David remember when David talked about resistance, and what he said about resistance? Mm-hmm. That resistance is the ego's interpretation of healing.
Mm.
of progress.
Of progress, exactly.
Yeah.
Of progress.
Say it again.
Resistance is the ego's interpretation of
Progress. Yeah.
Resistance. So
once the resistance is there, it's like, good.
yeah, I was thinking when you were voicing, it's like right on track. Right on track.
Yeah.
I don't think I understand what you mean by resistance when you say resistance is.
Resistance is really any kind of contraction in the mind. Resistance also, it can show up in a myriad of different ways, but mostly the I know mind is involved, and it feels like it knows something, and so it doesn't want to, say, follow a direction, a simple direction, because it thinks that somehow it's going to lose something, or it knows better, so there's lots of different ways resistance shows up, but it's basically a defense against the truth. And every thought, like Ramana Maharshi says, is the enemy, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so this is such a deep, deep cleansing of the mind. And it's so counterintuitive to the ego that you will feel right most of the time. And I love it in the Course. It says, even if you're right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why you're given to trust what's happening here is the easiest way to flow through things and express the resistance, express the thoughts always during expression session or whatever, but to know that you are being literally carried out of the darkness. And it seems like you're going to go directly into the darkness because it's so counterintuitive. I know at one point I had to literally let go of, I was having actually a lot of resistance to David. I had a lot of judgments of David, and it was killing me because I thought, oh my God, I've done all this, and I don't even trust David now, and but it was just this deep, deep cleansing that was going on. Of course, the spiritual container at a certain point has to crack too, because it's not the spiritual container. And but anyway, it's like that resistance is key to see that it's just an opportunity. Just give it a different slant. Okay, here's an opportunity. Everything that can affect me, what can affect the Christ? Nothing. Jesus wasn't walking to the cross bitching and moaning because people were off, or people weren't doing what he thought they should be doing, or they were mistreating him. He had transcended the world. And I listened to a talk today I did listen to it, the one Syracuse and David. Oh my God, you guys have to listen to it. Let It All Go was the first part of the Syracuse talk, and he talks about Cloneville, and it's just bam, it's just hard hitting, but that's it. It's like, not to get, every time something happens, use it for healing. And the healing, the prayer is the medium of the miracle. This is the relationship. This is why we came together, was so that we could come into an experience of this love, not between people. Now, I love Christian more than I ever loved Christian because it doesn't have anything to do with Christian anymore. I say, I just want to touch you, but it's not personal. I just want to, it's just this expression and this beautiful flow from within my mind. And so, just to use every single thing for that purpose, because the horizontal relating, that will kill you. Trying to mix the spiritual with the concept of what relationship used to be in this community is good. It'll bring it all up, but it's bringing it all up, and it might seem like it's not working out. All those things. We don't know our advances from our retreats.
Yeah.
It can look like hell, but underneath it is heaven, and that's the thing, is we're all joined in the miracle at the base. And the prayer of the heart has to be held in mind. Otherwise, you're just trying to figure things out. We're not the healer. The Spirit, who is not outside of us, it's that light, it's that vertical alignment. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, I am this. I am the light. Now, of course, I don't believe that when I'm first taking my steps, but that's what the Course is saying. So I'm gonna just contemplate it. I'm just going to absorb it. I'm going to allow this to start to become a reality. I'm going to open to it, basically. Stop thinking that I know what I am. Okay, Jesus says I'm this, and I'm sleeping, and and there's temptation. Then let's start looking at the temptation, and keep claiming that I'm this. You know what I mean? Keep claiming that I'm awake, and I'm tempted to sleep. So it's...
I want to come back and talk about complementary ego dynamics
Oh,
because they
yes.
were so important.
We had
But
so
first,
many of them.
I want to mention something because you brought something up. But I recently I saw a video where this mystic lady she astral travels. I was just talking about this with somebody, maybe it's you, but she astral travels. She's done it hundreds of times, and at one point Jesus came and grabbed her and said, "Okay, we're going to start undoing your mind." When she was in the astral realm, and so began working with her with undoing her mind, and he told her at one point that the number one thing that keeps people entrenched in hell is the belief that they know, actually, and it's what David calls the I know mind, which I'd never heard of until I got here. But it's the belief that we know, and it's actually the belief that we know more than God, or we know equal with God. That's what's underneath it, and that's what she was talking about. Jesus told her that that's the number one thing that keeps people enmeshed. And I started looking, when I started looking at my thoughts and really getting clear about these thoughts that pull me into the horizontal, every one is a belief that I know something. Every single one. And it was quite a shock because, just we were talking about how deep the I know mind goes. And just when I first got here, I started looking at the I know mind, and my tasks were all construction oriented. So I started looking at the beliefs of the I know mind, of that I know how to build something, a house, a deck, whatever. I know. And that's kind of the surface level, but that's where I had to begin. I had to begin right there. Oh, I know how to do this. And I remember one time Lisa told me, you have to start questioning where to even put a screw in a piece of wood. And I was like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I know where to put it. Jesus isn't going to tell me where to put a screw. I know exactly where. But that's part of the I know mind. And then it gets, eventually we see that every thought is a belief that it knows. Every single one. And then I want to come to one other thing, which is the even when you're right, you're wrong. Because this path will throw you up against, you will have everything lined out and formed where you are right. And I'm telling you right now, I've had it over and over and over.
You'll have all the evidence.
All the evidence in form where
but you're
I'm
not
right.
happy.
And I've actually thrown my phone with her one time when.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, so we're going to hit up against this belief that we are right. And that's when I've been the most miserable, is when I have had form completely lined up. And it happened over and over and over with her.
Mm.
That was one thing that got driven to the surface. And it's just going to, because we have an I know mind. We have an I know mind, we know we're right.
Mm-hmm.
But even when we're right, we're wrong.
We're going to go way beyond that.
Way beyond that, yeah.
Can you give an example of what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I guess I can tell that example, huh? Let me see. We were over at Masterpiece actually, and we had a cleanup day. It was last spring, I think, about this time last year. And Jenny was going into town, taking somebody to the airport. I can't remember. I don't remember the exact details, but Jenny called me and was asking me. I think there was something wrong with the van. That was it. There was something wrong with the vehicle she was taking into town, and so they had to pull over. And I could see very clearly what I thought needed to happen, and I knew I was right. I knew I was right.
Because he knows vehicles.
I know vehicles. So Suzanne came in and she said, "No, this is what we're going to do." And bam, bam, bam. And I thought it was the stupidest shit on the planet. because I knew what was wrong with that vehicle. And it's just the mind that knows, which has created all of our pain from the get-go. But that was, that's just one small example. So I had all the facts lined out. I could write it down on a piece of paper. I could have written a book about why I was right.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up, the other thing was done. And it worked out every single time that I know I've been right. It's I've been wrong. I remember one of the first times I looked at it, I knew that we needed to get a certain liquid in vehicles, and Lisa took me aside and she goes, "We ain't doing that." And I had such a huge anger around it. But it's not about whether a liquid goes in or it doesn't, or it's the things that need to get flushed up in this environment will get flushed up.
Right? Underneath it.
It's a fear thought that drives it, exactly.
Yeah, that drives it. I remember when
if we don't do it, the vehicle's going to have problems.
That's the problem.
The fear
it's
thought.
Not whether the liquid goes in or it doesn't.
Yeah.
We're here to undo fear. So if you're coming from a fearful place about if this doesn't get that, then this is going to happen.
Yeah, these guys can sniff it out just like that.
Yeah, it was just like, when I first got here, I was put in charge of the landscape up at the monastery. And I was so happy because I loved green grass, so it was like I figured, okay, I'll be able to make sure that these guys don't ruin the grass. And every time I would speak about it, they just look at me like what, and they could not hear me. And it was my area. It was my area, so I thought, okay, it's my area. Can't you see? It needs fertilizer. It needs this. It needs to be aerated. I mean, I just had a whole list of things, right? And I didn't understand why they couldn't hear me. I honestly was like, I'm doing a good job. It's my area. And it was when I first came, and then I sat down with Jason. I said, "What's going on here?" I said, "What the hell? That grass is going to die." And I'm saying, like, expressing all this fear to him, right? And he's just looking at me like, "Oh, well, nobody's going to hear you while you're in that level of fear. That's all you're communicating." And I was like, "Huh." And so that's what's, always looking at the motivation in your mind. What am I communicating, really? And all the concepts of the world are fear-based. Everything in the world is fear-based.
Yeah.
You don't even know how fear-based it is until you start unwinding them. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, so after this, this is a great example of this exact same thing. So after this expression about the liquid that needed to go in, it was a fuel cleaner, which, $3-4 bucks, whatever. It's very minimal. So had all this anger, and then I just gave up anything, trying to get anything through around vehicles. And we were coming back from Park City. You and I had been in Park City, Salt Lake. We get a simple oil change on the van, and this guy starts telling us all the things that the van needs, all these liquids and flushes, and I'm going,
right.
yeah, that's never. So Suzanne sticks me on the phone with Lisa. This is only about a month later. I'm going, yeah. I have no catch with it whatsoever. I know it's not going to happen. I don't even care.
Right.
I don't have a catch one way or the other.
Through it, yeah.
And I'm going through all these things. And it's like $700. And Lisa goes, okay, do it. Say, what? Like,
Because
$3.
it's not about the situation. It's about the mind.
But I had no fear wrapped up around it. I had no catch, no grab. There was nothing, no catch whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just simple things like, I lived in the canyon for many, many years, so I knew the canyon.
Yeah.
I knew that you didn't drive a vehicle that wasn't four-wheel drive out of the canyon in a rainstorm because, of course, the canyon can wash, and you'll need, And I said that to Lisa too, and I said, no, they need to take the truck. They need a four-wheel drive. She goes, you join me in the miracle. Would you just join me in the miracle? And I'm like, God, because I really thought this is just common sense, right? Common sense goes. This ministry will undo all of that.
Yeah, and actually, after she had this expression, the canyon did wash. And I mean boulders in the middle of this thing. Boulders, I'm not kidding. And David and Lisa were coming back after it washed. They were coming back from Salt Lake. They were in Lisa's, some of y'all have seen it, Lisa's little bitty gold Honda. It sits about 3 inches off the ground. And they came down Sam's Wash, and they came down and they made it after it washed.
And they were all in their joy.
Yeah. I walked up like a mile up, and I had no idea how they got down, but it wasn't in their mind, Okay, we're going this way.
Yeah, that's it. So it's always about your mind. It's always about your mind, and that simplifies things so much. Think of all the situations the mind is caught up in. It's like, oh, no wonder. Enlightenment is just, it's a lightening of the load in your mind can just drop. It's not needed. All this stuff is not needed. And it's just a huge covering over everything. So does anybody have any questions
That's
about
hilarious. I was just thinking the same thing.
specialness or any questions to us or anything that's on your heart or...
Any expression? It could be an expression.
Yeah, I had a specialness one, actually with you. And that when I first got here and went to that retreat and you expressed what you did at that retreat.
Well, let's tell them what I expressed so that everybody knows. Yeah, I just expressed it. I sat next to Cody, first time I'd ever seen him. And I had like this mystical experience with him. It was like a total union. I felt like I wanted to kiss his feet. That's how, I felt like he was just, I don't know, it's hard to explain in words, but I just felt this deep recognition of him, and I'd never met him, and the tears were coming down my face when I said, I don't know what exactly I said to you, but it was something of some sort of honoring of your presence there. That's what I said, yeah. It was a deep moment. Okay, go ahead.
Well, with that, I feel like ever since then, like, from that, I felt like there was some kind of expectation for me to be a certain way, or to heal like really rapidly, or to be called to be linked up with you. And so it feels like I've been judging myself because you seem to link up with Ricky and you mentioned earlier Jason, and it feels like there's this image of I should be further along than I am now, and I'm not measuring up to that. And I feel like, it feels like I'm projecting this disapproval from you, like this expectation that I have of myself is that, when I first get here, I'll have all this gusto, but then it'll burn out quickly, and then I just get really lazy with it and hopeless, and then everyone will get tired of my shit. I have this expectation that I just, be bright at first and then
Yeah, that's a good one to let go. It's like, there's a part of my mind right now that wants to tell you what I was saying just the other day. Who was it to? I can't remember. Maybe it was to you, Jackie. I don't know. About you. But it was still along the same lines. So I don't see it. I don't see anybody that comes here in a light other than absolute honor, because anybody that wants to turn their face towards the darkness, it's a huge, huge, for me it feels like an honor. It also feels like just a meeting of my own devotion, like we are in this together, we are doing this together. And I'm happy the concept of messengers of peace is going away. I think it's been maximized and it's been used and it's been beautiful, and it's time for that feeling of hierarchy or whatever it is that the ego will use it and separate, through those concepts. So just feels timely to have that go. There's definitely a pulling back now of, it's like walking through this intensity for the last 4 years, and feel so, so grateful to be able to now, I'm feeling very called into less words and going inward, and love the support of everybody here for us to be able to do that. And, I talked to David, that everything is going to be given vibrationally for wherever your mind is. So, the monastery is for all of us when we want to go into that deep silence and that vibe. And who knows, it could last a month, it could flash out, I don't know, but I don't have any idea. It'll come out when it feel like coming out, when I feel like there's a purpose for it. So thanks for exposing that. I love it when people expose stuff and they're so completely off. You know what I mean? That I can actually say, you are so completely off. I remember one time Carrie said to me, I don't know what she said, something about, I just don't believe that you love me. You say it all the time and I don't believe you. I was like, here's a good one. All I ever do is, love her, love her, love her, love her. So it's fun when it's so off, because sometimes there's threads of, some seeming pattern in there that's being undone.
Just something that came up when you were talking and sharing about the insights that both of you have had about these beliefs that you've been, that go way back, and then sort of you being in the silent retreat, and then it all coming up, over that period of a month, and Christian, in 2 weeks it sort of came, into his awareness. And yeah, with Polly, we've been in this intense relationship for almost a year, and it never feels like there's that clarity of what is going on other than just this intensity and, this attraction, but it's never what is going on? It doesn't ever feel like it gets deep into this aha level.
Yeah, and we spoke a little bit about that today. Compromise will keep you feeling like you're just spinning. And in fact, when Christian said it's maximized, in his mind at that time he wasn't compromising. He was letting go of thinking he could hurt me. Well, actually he was still letting go of it and having to walk through the fire thinking he was going to hurt me by saying that. So there was no compromise. There was no compromise when I went to the monastery and said, okay, Jesus, you got to heal this, because I got to see what this is. And actually, the closest times that we literally come together in our mind is when there's no compromise. And so compromise is very deadening. And for 9 months I compromised with Christian.
And I could feel it.
Yeah, I would compromise because I didn't want to hit his wall. I didn't want to hit the wall, his wall, right?
It feels gross. It feels,
Yeah.
It feels gross.
So it's like this kind of, I thought it was under the guise of discernment, and well, I'll just say this much and not that much. And in fact, it was 2 years, almost 2 years later, when the non-compromise came through, and my biggest fear happened. He left. But guess what? My mind soared. But I had to say what I had to say completely without any reservation. It was the first time. Because I also had this concept of messenger and volunteer and just all this weird stuff, so I wanted to do it right or whatever. You know, the intention was pure, but it was messed up. And so when, it was so cool too, because we just talked about this, like David was there, Carrie was there,
Yeah.
who else was there?
Francis too.
And I had this huge expression, probably, I mean, I just exploded. I was crying, I was pointing my finger, I was saying every single thing that I had compromised on, because I felt safe. David was there, I guess, but whatever.
And this was an expression that I'd heard over and over and over. Literally, that's the way these expressions go. So.
Right.
So you heard it from her over and over, and then now she was
For 2
expressing
years.
it with David.
Now it's coming up again, but in a very volcanic way.
It's volcanic because all along I was compromising in how I was sharing because I didn't want, I thought I don't want to trigger that wall, right? So I exploded. He left. I was at Angel's Landing. He left. They left.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we didn't speak for a few days. And I thought for sure he was over there feeling corrected, feeling devastated, feeling like he had hurt me. I had just proven to him that I had hurt him. Come to find out, that was the first time in any of the one of the first most powerful moments where you said, "This has nothing to do with me."
Yeah.
He wasn't feeling anything. I was over there thinking he's over in the casita just like totally devastated, and I've given him all the evidence that he's, wrong, and it's like, that's it. Non-compromise will deaden things, and non-compromise will just bring it right vertical. So it was really beautiful. It was like simultaneously that rawness came up. Now I knew it wasn't true, but I had to express it so that I could experientially know that it wasn't true, so.
Yeah, I had caught glimpses before that of this being only hers. Whatever she expressed was for her. If I had a catch on it, then it was mine. It was very experiential, but it wasn't until this particular, and this was right, this was in this last December, where the whole thing from beginning to end, I just sat there and I was like, nothing. There was nothing. I saw so clearly it just had nothing to do with me. It wasn't personal, not at all.
And see, this is the key. It's like we did all of this, we had the foundation, we walked through the steps that we could walk through together for many, many, many months. I mean, we were working it all the time. So I had the mind, I had the courage built up, and I had the support of the miracle. I had seen it, so it was like I was able to do this. But then after that, that felt very good. And then, I don't know how long it was, I don't know the timeline anymore, but it was not long after.
A week or...
Yeah, he was not joining in the way that I felt like he should be. But I would always compromise with him. Any other volunteer, I would have called him on it. Like, no, you want to come in and, it was another I know mine thing that was showing up. It was like the water had quit, and I wanted to join with him and KJ around it in prayer. Let's look at it. Let's feel into it. The I know mine came. I was non-compromising for the very first time, really, without, like I said, listen, you come in, you join, let's feel into this, or you can leave. And he chose to leave. My worst fear, he's going to leave, right? But it was like, and he was really going to leave. Like, you packed up your car, you were going down the road, remember?
The dark rift.
Yeah. It was the night. It was the day of the dark rift.
It was the
It
dark
was
rift.
2012,
It was
December
last day of
12th.
the Mayan calendar.
I thought, I'm going for the rift, man. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And
I packed my truck.
he packed his truck. He comes back over, and his car is running out in front of Angel's Landing, and I'm like, okay. And you know what? My mind soared. Once again, it soared because I had to let it go. I could not try to keep this relationship intact. And it was just perfect. It was the miracle. And then there was one other thing. Oh, yeah, you came up. Yeah.
There was a couple of things that happened before that. Stacy was helping me. I had my battery that was out, and I had to put it in.
To leave.
Yeah, to leave. So I had it on a charger. So he not only lost a bolt to the battery once, he lost it twice. And the second time he lost it, it got lost in the snow. And so that's the thing that kept me
there.
until Carrie set up a meeting with David. This is where you have your mighty companions that come in, and because when you hit those walls that are that solid.
And tell him what David said.
So I walked into this meeting with David, and I told him, what I was feeling and crying, and he goes,
"What were you feeling? I mean, why were you wanting to leave?"
Because I had an upset with Suzanne about I couldn't get it right. I could never do it right for her. It was the same thing. It was like the same expression from the first time we hit the wall to then. It was the same wall. But David said, the very first thing he said was, if you think this is an interpersonal relationship, you will always have pain.
If you see it as anything other than your own mind,
yes,
you'll have pain.
So why do we have these relationships? To see that I'm only ever seeing my mind. I'm only ever seeing what I want to believe in.
That's why you cannot work it out this way.
No. And I can never do anything to make her happy. I can't ever do anything to upset her. Now, we've been going, I remember when we were out here, just Jesus literally going, things that I needed to tell her that I had been holding on to because I didn't want to hurt her. And literally hearing, you have to say this because you think you can hurt somebody. You think you can actually hurt her.
Yep. With words.
And so I would walk into expressions and say things that no relationship would ever survive. No relationship would ever survive. In the world, no relationship. You're not going to get to a point in a worldly relationship where you're ever really going to truly communicate anyway. Mm-hmm. And this relationship from the get-go was about one thing and one thing only. Very brutally honest communication.
Yeah. So it's just a fast track but until, go back to your question, until that courage was built up enough in me to just be non-compromising and see, and I could see that I was trying to keep a relationship going. That's what I was doing. And I had to let it go. And then it just comes back beautifully. It's like, all right, this is what it's for. It's to share and extend the joy of the healing, and to say, it gets dark, it gets hard, but it's all worth it. And that's why I can sit with anybody who's going through sheer hell, and I just don't even, I barely even listen to the story anymore, because it's not your story, it's the story, it's the air. And it's like looking beyond that now and just connecting with the light. It's like, yep, I understand. Yeah. There's not a thing that you're experiencing that I haven't experienced. Right down to wanting to just check out, wishing the Mack truck would hit me. Yeah. Never had those thoughts before I entered this path, ever. I got here and my life got worse. Way worse. Before it ever got better.
Yeah, we're comfortably repressed in the world. Comfortably repressed.
We're real comfortable with that repression.
Television, Starbucks, shopping, eating out, going to movies. It's endless.
The distraction.
The next good fiction novel, whatever. It's
the
endless.
ego just wants to be entertained.
And
we're taking entertainment off here, and I've come together to take the lid off of the insanity. So of course the insanity is going to show up. Welcome it.
Yeah, we have to stop one day, just say, okay, I'm going to face this fully. And that's the decision that that we've all made by being here. Okay, I'm done. Just like you were saying today, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore. And when you hit that point, you come here. Because we can't do it. We can't do it anymore.
This is the ICU.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, come with wholly empty hands. And let me tell you, when we get here, I remember getting here thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to be in a spiritual setting and I'm it's just going to be all nice and dandy and going to gently, there's, I got here and there was nothing gentle about my first 5 months. It was absolutely, it felt like a war zone in my mind every day. And actually this mystic woman, she said, when you finally stop and turn toward God, that from an astral realm, and now granted she's just looking at the mind through her filters, but she said it looks like war because these, the ego will come in with all of the guns loaded, just blasting away. And that's what it felt. It felt like war every single day that for the first 5 months I was here. I mean, absolute full-out war. It felt like I was lost at the deepest level. I never felt lost like that. And, the ego will throw it into, oh, you're losing mama, you're losing the ability to make money, da-da-da-da. But it was just a deep, deep sense of loss, just loss. And I had to face that every single day for 5 months.
And that is always there. That's what we're uncovering and
That's what's
releasing.
being covered up, absolutely, by going to the movies. We're not going to the movies, we're going to the movies to cover up this deep sense of loss
Let me
and
see
guilt.
somebody else's story.
Yeah,
Get involved in that.
yeah.
And there's a lot of fun too. I mean, we do have fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question, Suzanne. I know you mentioned that you gave up your husband when you came here. What was your thought process when you were doing that? Is that like you felt like that it's not going to work no matter what he said or did? Was it like him just saying, like for me, like with my boyfriend, I just basically said, I'm on a different path than you. You need to go on your path, and I'm going on my path. But there's still is that clinging happening, that hope that something will work out.
Yeah. I was very fortunate that when I was asked what the purpose of my relationship was, the question was, does he help with the undoing of your mind? And the answer was no, he does not. He gives me lots of support from an ego standpoint of specialness. He loved me, he adored me, he took care of me, he supported me. He brought me my Course in Miracles, but he wasn't interested in awakening, and I was, and I knew it. And so when that question came in, I was literally shocked by it. It was just one of those moments when I knew that my life would never be the same, because it was a clear no. He wasn't interested in seeing things in a different light. So a beautiful man, absolutely, all the things a little girl dreams of. And so what came through my mind was horror. I didn't have any idea that he would be part of something that I needed to let go of. Now, of course, what am I really letting go of? I'm really letting go of my God's substitute. And he did a good job of it, as far as the world goes. But that's what it is. When I said, oh, he supports me, I was just telling David and Jason all these accolades about my husband. And David looked at me with just a puzzled look on his face and said, he goes, I can't even imagine getting that from a person. And that's when I knew, oh my God, I am not sustained by the love of God. I'm sustained by a special relationship. And so I had to really, I knew in that moment, it was like I knew that it had to go. And how did I feel? I felt devastated. I felt very devastated. But I had inklings and actually mystical experiences of everything falling away and coming into this divine love for brief moments of time. So, and I just felt such a strong call, It's highly individualized, Not everybody's just going to pull the pin on their entire life. That's what I was feeling called to do. And I had lived I had a spiritual retreat center. I'd studied the Course for a long time. I had heard, you need to go deeper. I wanted to go deeper. That was the truest desire of my heart. And in fact, when I married my husband, I said, there's a doorway in my mind, I know there is, and when I find it, I'm going to have to go. And he knew me. So that's why when this all came down and I told him, he knew. He knew. So we walked through it together, and it was really actually a very beautiful experience to let go of each other with that kind of intention. But no, it's not easy. But the grab for something, that's always your indicator. If there's a grab, like it makes you feel safe. And it's not that we don't use relationships. And I remember one of the first, I don't know, you were there a month or two, and I don't know the timeline. But anyway,
This is 2011.
yeah, and he said, I can't count on anything. I can't count on this relationship. I can't count on this monastery. I can't count on anything. And I was like, yeah, you can't. You can't count on anything. And I was like, yeah, that is the correct answer, right? We go in and sit and have a 2-on-1 with Jason, and Jason says, no, you need to move in. This is your home now. This is what's been given by the Spirit. This is the relationship that's been given. Move into it and use it. And I thought, oh, that's so much nicer than, nope, you can't count on anything. We're given this support,
Well, it's not, I don't think I feel the grab that is not that strong, but I think it's more like, it's hard for me to do the break. Like,
yeah.
how do I just say, this is over?
Well, that's where you join here and you express and you talk about your pain and you express it. If you have to express it every day, you express it every day. You don't say, I've already said this. I feel stupid to say it again. Oh my God, I had to express things that were so humiliating over and over and over. So you just keep expressing and joining. And when you want to make a phone call or you want to write an email, you join with somebody and say, is this really the best thing? Because you can't tell. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's very given that you do it. But the more you join with people here around these kinds of decisions where there's a pull and a pain in your mind, because the only thing that's being let go of right now is your pain. It feels like something is being sacrificed, but the only thing is the pain. I remember it was right after I knew that I was going to have to leave, that we were going to have to split, and we were still living together up there. And I was sleeping, which is David's room now. I was sleeping in there, and that was our master bedroom. And he didn't. I woke up in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m, and he wasn't there. And of course, there's lots of places to be out there. So I thought, what am I doing? I'm insane. Why am I? I gotta go find him and undo this. And I put my foot on the ground, and I literally heard, "This is what you've settled for as love." Was this pain? And I knew in that moment, it was almost like I literally saw the whole kingdom, the canyon, the retreat center, my love for my horses, everything. You know how Jesus is so graphic about dripping in blood and all this stuff. I literally saw that it was what was keeping me from awakening. And that relationship, that love was so painful in that moment that I knew that couldn't be true. It's like, so I heard it. This is what you've settled for as love. Now come with me. I'll really show you what love is. But yeah, so just know that you're being held and that this is what the Spirit has given you right now to just really move in, like Jason said to Christian, move in here for the time that you're here. You don't have to say it's forever because that's way too much for the, just for today. Move in. If you're here for a month more or whatever it is, I don't know exactly what your timeline is. Just fully move in. Because you can always leave. You can always leave. But just really maximize it and let it fall. Let it fall apart. I walked around the monastery for months looking like a heroin addict, smoking, just not caring anymore. I couldn't hold the spiritual mask together because I thought I had a pretty good spiritual life, and these guys were just. So just be okay with letting it fall apart. It's the quickest, most gentle thing you can do. Because hanging on to trying to manage it, you want to heal, you don't want to manage your mind anymore. You're not the healer, the Spirit is. The Spirit has given you this place. He's given it to you. It's all for you. That's how I see it all the time. It's like, oh my God, this is all for me. Because my devotion is that high, it's going to be so heavily reinforced by everything I need, including a cushy chair and a hot tub. So I told them in Spain, because they're in a cooker over there too, and I said, I had a conference call over there with them, and I said, look what you guys have. Look what this, you got a pool. You can go lay by the pool. It's intense. We know it's intense, and it's that counterintuitive feeling that you're not going to survive it. You just have to keep. The thing that kept flashing in my mind through my hardest times was Jesus walking to the cross. It's like, okay, that's what He's calling me out of the world to that degree. Listen to Cloneville. Listen to the Syracuse talk about Cloneville. It's like we're literally, by letting go of these concepts and these thoughts in our mind, and everything has been given back, purified. Everything. My relationships, certainly no sacrifice with Christian. I've never been more happy, but it has nothing to do with him. So cool. What you looking at?
Well, I was just thinking about, how we hear over and over, and Lisa said it, ad infinitum, your way out is to join. Your way out is to join. And of course, I didn't believe anything anybody told me, so I questioned everything. But your way out is to join. And I remember it was here at Camas, and it was over a year ago, year and a half, I don't remember, but it was Sunday, and we were having church. And I was, do I go? Do I need to go? And I have tarot cards, and I threw a card, and it was very clear, you need to go. And I was like, okay, tell me why. And I turned to this lesson 137, and he says, healing is the opposite of all the world's ideas which dwell on sickness and on separate states. Sickness is a retreat from others and a shutting off of joining. Very, very, very succinct and clear. That's the second sentence in. It becomes a door that closes on a separate self and keeps it isolated and alone. And that's autonomy.
Yeah.
That's autonomy.
Autonomy, yeah.
We've lived autonomous lives. We've made autonomous decisions. We get here, and all of a sudden we're joining, and people are telling us what to do, and we're going, that's the stupidest shit on the planet. I have lived, I'm a freaking adult. I know how to make these decisions.
I don't need to tell you when I'm going to the store.
You don't, I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to the store. I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to go take a walk. I'm going to take it when I goddamn feel like it, It's like... And
I had a joy with David and messengers around whether to even go into our relationship.
Yeah.
It's like, but thank God we don't have to make these decisions on our own.
Yeah, when I'm healed, I'm not healed alone, lesson 137. Very, very clear on exactly why we need to join.
Yeah, and joining when, the conversation you don't have is the one that's standing in the way of your happiness. So those are the conversations, just go and have them. Those are the expressions. The ones that you don't want to express it.
Yeah, I would say Lisa's probably the best I've ever seen at that. She would just walk in and drop a bomb and then kind of walk out, and like she didn't keep anything in her mind. There were no filters.
Yeah.
So it's really quite a quickening. Let the filters go.
Okay, wow. It's almost 9.
Any other questions?
It's good stuff. There's no other place that I've ever known that carries this all the way out in this way. That's why I'm excited about Christian's book, because it's really about his experiences of coming up against all this stuff. It's not theorizing about stuff. It's really really sharing that it's possible, that, and it's also very radical, it's very, very radical what we're doing. And that's what I love the most. I remember when I used to travel first with David, and he would just get onto these way out things. I was like, oh, please don't say that. That's just too much,
Yeah.
And now it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first got a hold of David's stuff, I was just listening to it over and over and over, and I could not believe the things that he was like. God, you can go into groups and say that, and he's unbelievable.
He gets away with it.
Yeah, he gets away with it. People, and I was, he actually believes what he's saying.
It seems like he's turned up the volume on things too.
Yeah.
In case you missed it the first time.
Yeah, mincing no words.
Yeah.
And it's really, the I am is coming through everywhere. And David, I never have had a worshipful thing for David. I just knew he was a symbol in my own mind of clarity, and somebody who had symbolized to me that you can go very, very deep into this real experience of truth. And so it's just beautiful. It's like, now I love it when he speaks so clearly, because it's just the truth of who we are. David, when he speaks, it's the truth in your mind speaking. It's not David speaking. It's the truth in your own mind speaking, saying, come with me, So,
He's showing us the healed part of our minds, literally.
Yeah.
He's in our mind.
yeah, he's not over there. He's not across there. So, yeah, it's just been nice to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, next week I would actually like to do, there's phase 2, maybe at some point late next week. There's a little more into looking at darkness. We were talking about it last night on the ride, and exactly why and what's going on in the mind when we stop and turn. It's great. It's awesome. It's by a guy called Dan Din from Kiwi Land. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you for the song, Jackie. That was a great way to start it off. You gotta laugh at this stuff too. I mean, the vigilance is high, but if you don't have fun, but please, have some fun. Okay.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
Come back and do session, whatever you want.
Well, I think maybe by end of next week I'll be here